Okay, guys, hope that you are warm and comfy inside. I've had to make some cuts to videos so they're not incredibly long, but still wanting to stay on track. A lot of Unit 7.1 is review because we went through a whole nother unit, the Industrial Revolution, since we left the Age of Napoleon. So here we are on Unit 7.1, Part 1, Ideologies and Revolutions, 1815 to 1850. So still kind of same time period, but coming back to some of the politics going on instead of just the Industrial Revolution. This is the age of Metternich. So if you can see here, we've moved out of the French Revolution. We're into the age of Metternich here. We talked about him before in the Congress of Vienna. Pay close attention to the chart, periodization and chronology. So moving from the French Revolution and into the age of Metternich. This is what I like to call the age of isms. We're going to talk about socialism and nationalism and conservatism, some liberalism in there. We can't ignore that, left over from the French Revolution. Did I say nationalism? Communism, all of these things. So the age of isms. So we're moving from the French Revolution and we're heading towards World War I, guys. What does the Concert of Europe, the Congress of Vienna, what does it leave us set up for? What is going to happen? Just again, the age of Metternich. He is Clemens von Metternich. He is representing Austria at the Congress of Vienna, and he is the best representative of this era of conservatism because of his leadership and his policies that he's going to bring into the Congress of Vienna. Remember, Napoleon has been defeated at this time, and the victors at the Congress of Vienna will seek to prevent the new forces of liberalism and nationalism from disturbing the conservative order. So liberalism and nationalism become the enemy of this conservative order, and this is going to lead us into problems leading up into World War I. But at this time, the Concert of Europe was the clearest and most effective expression of conservatism. They are seeking, remember, that legitimacy. They want the good old days. They're like those guys that sit around and remember in the good old days. The good old days to them was legitimacy and a balance of power, and the old entities being restored to their throne. But remember, we're on the other side of that going to still have that liberalism that had been brought up during this time, right? During this time of the French Revolution and Enlightenment. It had been really unleashed during these times, but is going to be largely kept in check during the years of the Congress of Vienna. Why? Because they're the good old guys. They want conservatism. They want to stop this spread of liberalism, and that's going to be the main goal of this Congress, the Concert of Europe, the Congress of Vienna, is to check liberalism and nationalism at this time. And so it's really a repression of these ideals that came out of the French Revolution and Enlightenment. This is going to move us into our main, our MAIN, our main ideas, main causes for World War I. The first being nationalism, although at the end of the word. So the N in main is nationalism. Nationalism becomes perhaps the greatest force for revolution in the period between 1815 and 1850. You have all of these revolts for nationalistic ideals here. Number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just read through those there. Nationalism going to start to cause us some problems, and not just as a nation, but ethnicities within nations. And remember, the redrawing of this map is going to put a lot of ethnicities together. Should they each be their own little nation? Should they adhere to the larger nation that they're in? We get another ism here with Romanticism, and this is the philosophy that challenged the rationalism of the Enlightenment and emphasized individualism, emotion, faith, nature. This is art, this is feelings, this is a challenge there to the rationalism of the Enlightenment, but it's going to become politically linked to liberalism and nationalism. And there's another ism here at E, socialism. We've talked about this in our last unit. This is a direct result or response to the Industrial Revolution, because during that time, remember, socialism is going to begin to challenge the bourgeoisie, the rich, for its maltreatment of the workers or our proletariat during the Industrial Revolution, and begins to advocate a new social and economic order based on equality. People are going to start to say it's not fair, it's not fair. Some are rich and they're the ones not doing the hard work, and some are poor, and that's us, and we're the workers, and we're being mistreated. And so communism and socialism again here. So a lot of this review, it feels like 3 months ago with the snow days that we talked about this, and we snuck the Industrial Revolution in there in between. But coming back, we also need to review this Congress of Vienna from the end of Unit 5.2, because it's going to be very important to what we're moving into right now. Okay, so the Congress of Vienna, September of 1814 to June 1815. Note here, I put this in here, this is a repeat of material at the end of Unit 5.2. And so what's going to happen with the Congress of Vienna? It's after the Napoleonic Wars. We discussed this at the end of Unit 5.2 with what happened to Napoleon. And all the reps of the major powers of Europe are going to come together, including France, to redraw those lines of Europe, okay, to recreate Europe, to set up this balance of power. Remember, it's like, to go back to the status quo. They're like, oh, remember the good old days when things were like this. And so they're going to come together to try to fix all of these problems that came about during this time period of turmoil with France and the Napoleonic Wars. Remember, like Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall, and all the king's horses and all the king's men are going to try to put Humpty together again. And this is where we are. They're trying to make it what it used to be. So they come together in Vienna. Remember, Vienna is in Austria. Austria is going to play a key role here. That's going to be my next slide, talking about Metternich and the role that he played. And so they're going to come together to decide the future of Europe. So the big four, Austria, England, Prussia, and Russia, and then, of course, France is going to be there, are going to come together to represent Europe and what Europe needs at this time. Okay, so first guy here, we have Clemens von Metternich, who represents Austria, who's going to be our leading negotiator at this time, and epitomizes the conservative reaction to the liberalism, to Enlightenment, to all of these things that had come about in the French Revolution. And he is really going to be against nationalism. He opposes these ideals of liberals and reformers because of the impact it would have on his multinational Habsburg Empire. He rules a multinational empire, and what happens if all those little nationalities want to get together and be their own little nations? Well, the Habsburg Empire is going to fall apart. So he's against all of the isms, except for, of course, his own conservatism. Some people call him Big Nosy. He was, I guess you shouldn't tell from the picture there, but people thought he had kind of a big nose. So Big Nosy, I also think kind of nosy because he sticks his nose in Europe's business really at this time, which is what he's there for, and is going to lead us towards this conservative time period, towards this conservative era. And then we have Castlereagh, Lord Castlereagh, who represents England, and really he's just going to be all about like stopping the crazy of the French. They are tired of dealing with France, and so really he's just going to want a balance of power, or like kind of hemming France in to keep them from being able to do this again from all of this craziness of the Napoleonic Wars. Prussia is going to seek to recover Prussian territory lost to Napoleon. And then we get the individual in the picture here. We have Tsar Alexander I, who's going to represent Russia. And so then we get the gentleman pictured here, Tsar Alexander I, who's going to represent Russia. He wants Poland to be free, but he wants to be its king. I mean, so there you go. He just really wants Poland. And then you're going to get France becoming later involved, as we've talked about, with Talleyrand, the French foreign minister, is going to show up to represent France. And so here we get our big four, or who is representing Europe at this time post-Napoleonic Wars. So as I said, that's our big four. I mean, there's other nations there. There's other nations, of course, in Europe. I mean, France is there. And this is where you get that time period called, the Dancing Congress, because others are there, but there's not much. They're not doing much of anything. There's not much other than the big 4+1 to be doing anything. So this is where you get the time period called the Dancing Congress. Because, they're just, out partying, having fun. There's not much for them to do, just kind of getting a favorable public opinion by making it look like everyone is involved, like this is a decision by all, but really it's just the big four, +1, which is France. And so this becomes the time period known as the Dancing Congress. Okay, and so we have all of them together. That's the Congress of Vienna, and what are they there for? To renew conservatism, and how are they going to do this with the three principles we've talked about, the principles of settlement, first being legitimacy, second being compensation, and third being the balance of power. Legitimacy, again, just meaning returning to power the ruling families who have been, kicked off their thrones due to more than 2 decades of revolutionary warfare during the Napoleonic Wars, and they want to put them back on. They want to put them back in power. So the Bourbons here are going to be restored in France, Spain, and Naples. Dynasties restored in Holland, Sardinia, Tuscany, and Modena. The Papal States will be returned to the Pope. And so, just putting all the good old boys back on their thrones that have been disrupted during these Napoleonic Wars. Our second principle of settlement is going to be compensation, meaning territorially rewarding those who would help these countries fight against Napoleon. Think of all the time, effort, and money that these nations had allocated towards the Napoleonic Wars that they could have been doing other things with. I don't know, like industrializing. And so they're going to say, okay, we're going to reward you with these little pieces of territory for helping fight against, this is Napoleon. This is really like to the victors goes the spoils. And so giving back, England is going to get naval bases such as Malta, Ceylon, the Cape of Good Hope. Austria will cover the Italian province of Lombardy, and awarded adjacent Venetia as well as Galatia from Poland and the Illyrian provinces. Russia's given most of Poland. Remember, one of our big four, Mr. Alex I, who wanted Poland, he's going to get it. He's going to be the king of Poland. Prussia's going to be awarded the Rhineland, 3/5 of Saxony and part of Poland. Sweden will receive Norway. And what really happens here is Metternich and Castlebrugge, so Austria and England, don't really like this. They don't like this compensation. Why? Because they're afraid if Prussia and Russia get too powerful, then what? And so Austria and England make a secret treaty here, right? Secret treaty, because, man, we're going to be talking about a lot of secret treaties moving us towards World War I and the problems those cause. And so they say, we will be friends if this goes awry and Prussia and Russia get too powerful. We will be friends. We will help each other out here. And so we have a secret treaty made even in these early stages of the Congress of Vienna. Okay, and so this secret alliance, secret treaty is really going to set a precedent we're going to see. That's going to cause us some problems in the 100 years that we're moving towards World War I. I mean, because if I am, friends with you, but I don't know who your friends are, and we get into a fight, and I didn't know that I just, dumped you in front of all of your friends, and then they jump in, so nobody knows whose friends are, this is going to cause us a problem, these secret treaties as we move 100 years from now into World War I. So we have legitimacy, we have compensation. Now when you talk about balance of power, and so what do they really want? Well, Napoleon, France has been causing all of these problems since 1789. They've been bothersome. And so really, they're wanting to encircle France to keep them from being too powerful again. They want to redraw these territory lines. They're dreaming, this is their dream for world peace. How can we prevent another world war or wars of this magnitude? And so how do you do that? Well, you're going to make the people around France really powerful. You want to keep them, stop France from going north, so you're going to strengthen what's to the north of them. You're going to strengthen the Netherlands. They're going to unite the Austrian Netherlands, what is now Belgium, with Holland to form the Kingdom of the United Netherlands north of France. So this puts power to the north of France. Although this is going to cause a problem because, how much does that suck to be you if you're that power left to the north to have to deal? So with Belgium, we're going to see some problems there later as we're moving towards World War I. Prussia will receive the Rhinish lands bordering on the eastern French frontier, so this is trying to stop France to the east, so strengthening the countries around France to keep them from trying to move into power again. Switzerland is going to receive a guarantee of perpetual neutrality, which really still exists today. How many times have you been, with two friends who are fighting and you're like, I'm Switzerland, I'm neutral, okay? So they're going to be given neutrality. This is the end of the Habsburg Holy Roman Empire. It's going to enhance the Habsburgs' influence over the German states by creating the German Confederation of 39 states out of the original 300, which really maintains Napoleon's reorganization of Germany and this move towards unification. We've seen Germany in the last unit unify economically. Now we're going to be unifying, keeping that unification and moving forward. And so we're definitely going to be talking about Germany in the next 100 years as we move forward. Sardinia or Piedmont had its former territory restored with the addition of Genoa. And a compromise on Poland will be reached, called the Congress of Poland, created, remember, with one of our big four, Alexander I of Russia, as king. You may want to circle here that this will only last 15 years, however. Remember, nationalism and liberalism still pushing, even though this is a conservative order. And those nationalities are not going to want to be governed by another king, okay? So we're going to see some problems here. Only Great Britain is going to remain untouched. this is really important because this is going to allow Britain to remain as a growing power, the only one. And this is going to begin, as we've discussed, their century of world leadership from 1814 to 1914. So pretty much 1815 up to World War I, they'll be the world power. And then what's going to happen? World War I, they're fighting. Things are starting to fall apart. They're fighting each other in Europe. And guess who steps forward? Then us, okay? Then us as a movement towards a world power in that time period. But at this time, only Britain will remain as a growing power, beginning their century of world leadership. So no, 1814 to 1914 is the time of Britain. Is their time here, just as we talked about during the Industrial Revolution. Okay, so we've got France all hemmed in. We've got Britain being the only one not hemmed in or having somebody to check their powers because, of course, they're off the continent. So we need to really evaluate the Congress of Vienna. I mean, was it successful? Well, I mean, in some terms you can say it was. It's going to create a balance of power until 1871. And what happens in 1871 will be this balance of power is going to be compromised by those German states. Okay, Germany is going to be looking for its time in the sun. And once it unifies, it's going to be looking, that nationalism had been stirred up during the Napoleonic Wars in Germany. And we're going to see that. But, I mean, successful, it had... caused us not to have any world wars, a couple little disputes here and there, but no world wars occurring between 1815 and 1914. Some historians are going to argue that it was more successful in stabilizing the international system than the treaties in the 20th century. I mean, I would almost say that we were better off here in the Congress of Vienna in 1815 than we will be in 1918 after World War I. I mean, and that's just kind of, I think anybody could say that. We end up in World War II very shortly after. So 100 years of no world wars or no huge world clashes right here. Just a couple of disruptions here. And it had really done its goal. It had brought us back to the conservative status quo. No France is a great world power at this time. It's hemmed in. Till 1871 when Germany will become one power. But there are people that hate it. Liberals hate it. People who believe in nationalism hate it. And I think one of the key downfalls of the Congress of Vienna was that they did not see national. They ignored how much nationalism was out there, and that's going to be one of our main causes. MAIN, the N in Maine of World War I. They ignored this nationalistic push. Why? Because if you're drawing these lines and you are, Poland under Russia, you want to be Poland, okay? And so it's going to cause some problems there as we move through the next 100 years. But this is what historians could, again, like the French Revolution, call a watershed moment. Things are different after the Congress of Vienna forever than they were before. And so this is definitely a watershed moment. We're going to see later, however, that, where in the Congress of Vienna everything had to be agreed upon unanimously, it's going to be later dictated by the stronger countries. But we're going to get up to that after we review here in a second what we've gone over. We're going to get into that concert of Europe where they continue to meet. So a little review here before we get into the concert of Europe. So who was the most important personality at the Congress of Vienna? Gotta know Metternich. Epitomized conservatism. This is the conservative era, the hearkening in of the good old days. The victors at the Congress of Vienna tried to recreate the Holy Roman Empire. That is false, okay? We've seen its demise here, okay? So know that is false. The victors at the Congress of Vienna sought to reduce weapons so there would never be war again. This is false. We did not talk about weapons. Now, is this going to be something we're going to talk about post-1817? Yeah, not right here, okay? So that is false. The victors at the Congress of Vienna tried to put into effect the principles of the balance of power. True. Okay, that was one of the principles of settlement, the balance of power. So definitely know that this is true. The Congress of Vienna treated France harshly. Okay, this is kind of tricky here. Was it harsh for what had happened? I would say no. There is a difference here. If you were given like the, in quote, the first or second treaty, before Napoleon, France had allowed Napoleon to come back. They were very easy on France. After, a little more harsh, but overall harsh? I don't think so. There were a lot of things except returning France to its original historic size. So I'd say false here, for sure. Waiting for rights. There we go. All nationalities were allowed self-determination because of the work of the Congress of Vienna. This is false, okay? Not self-determination, which is going to cause our problem with nationalism versus conservatism here. So false. So Prussia did not get any land out of the Congress of Vienna. This is going to be false. They did, okay? So remember, we have that worry that Prussia and Russia are going to get too strong, and that is part of it due to Prussia getting land out of the Congress of Vienna. Belgium and Holland maintain separate identities because of the Congress of Vienna. This is false, okay? No, they're going to be created into, that very strong Netherlands, which is going to cause problems. Belgium being there to the north of France to help hem them in. And so this is also false. There were lots of border territory changes because of the work of the Congress of Vienna. This is totally true, okay? We're redrawing. Remember, we're putting Europe back together. We're redrawing the territory lines to hem in France. So true. Belgium became neutral because of the Congress of Vienna. This is false. Somebody became neutral. Remember, you are Switzerland. If your friends are fighting, Switzerland became neutral, not Belgium. Belgium is going to be put right into the action here. Problem down the road, and we will see that. Belgium became part of the Netherlands because of the Congress of Vienna. This is true. Okay, this is true. They will become part of that strong Netherlands to the north to hem in France. And then finally, Belgium became part of France because of the Congress of Vienna. This is false. They become part of the area that's going to hem in France, not part of France. And so turning, there we are, back to the Concert of Europe, this continued meeting of the minds after the Congress of Vienna, how Europe is going to keep meeting, to keep things in check, to keep making decisions. Okay, so the Concert of Europe taking place from 1815 to the 1850s, so right after or during the time of the Congress of Vienna all the way up into the 1850s, where we're going to have the Crimean War, which is going to break apart this Concert of Europe, or kind of break apart these meetings. We're going to have a disturbance here, but the Concert of Europe, everyone's playing together just like a concert. It was a series of arrangements to enforce the status quo that had been created with the Congress of Vienna, as defined, as I said, in the Vienna settlement. Okay, so this is the concert, everyone playing together to maintain the status quo, this conservative era that they have created. It's essentially a crusade against liberalism and nationalism, because liberalism and nationalism they directly see as a hindrance to the status quo that we have created. So this is their attempt to keep the conservatism, to keep the status quo. Two major provisions of this are going to be the Quadruple Alliance and the Congress system. So we need to talk about the Quadruple Alliance first. That's our big four. So our Quadruple Alliance now put in place to ensure the status quo, to ensure conservatives are like, hey, look at us, we took down Napoleon, and we need to ensure that it stays this way. So they are going to provide for concerted action against any threat to the peace that has been created or the balance of power. They are here to beat down nationalism and liberalism. Okay, those are their main goals. Why isn't France here? Why isn't France part of this Russia, Prussia, Austria, and England Quadruple Alliance? Because France was usually seen as the possible violator of the Vienna settlement. They are the reason that we are here. And so they are going to be kept out of this Concert of Europe, or this continued meeting to balance the power. The alliance, remember, will agree here that no Bonaparte should ever again govern France. And Austria used the alliance to defend the status quo. That's Metternich, okay? They are going to use this alliance. Oh, be fearful of that nationalism, liberalism. Look what it did to France. Look at all these wars that we fought. Look how far behind we got from England. And are going to challenge anything that tries to disrupt this system. Liberalism, again, and nationalism were seen as threats to the existing order. And so they're going to continue these meetings that were created by the Congress of Vienna, and they're going to do this through the Congress system, which is a series of meetings by our big four: Russia, Prussia, Austria, and England. And this is what is called the principle of collective security. It required unanimous voting among members of the Quadruple Alliance on how things were going to be maintained, how the status quo will be maintained, and it's going to work effectively until the early 1820s, because it's going to start to fall apart in 1822 when Britain will withdraw from the Congress, effectively killing the Congress system, or this meeting of the big four. It's going to severely weaken it. And really the main reason that Britain steps out is they are going to disagree with the Congress's squashing of a revolt in Spain. And so the Congress system only lasting until 1822, when the removal of Britain is going to greatly weaken it. Okay, so next we kind of get this weird thing called the Holy Alliance. It's going to be proposed by the Russians, by one of our big four, Alexander I, in 1815. And this is only going to include Russia, Prussia, and Austria, because Britain is kind of weirded out by this Holy Alliance. They're like, oh, okay, remember, they're still part of the Quadruple Alliance this time. Not till 1822 are they going to remove themselves from that due to the, the squashing of a revolt in Spain. But Britain's kind of like, you guys are weirding me out. We're not going to be part of this. And what the Holy Alliance really was the first attempt to stop the growth of liberalism. It's kind of that nod towards, okay, we're conservative, but there are still liberal and nationalistic forces out there. And so what Alexander proposes that all the monarchs, Russia, Prussia, and Austria, and the monarchs they put back on the throne, sign a statement agreeing to uphold Christian principles of charity and peace. So it's kind of like this army for Christianity, but really it wasn't an army as much of like Christians. It was an army to hold down liberalism. It was seriously ideological and impractical, and few took it seriously, especially Britain. They're like, oh, you guys are weird. I mean, we're all for this balance of power thing, but this is just, this is going too far. I mean, Castlebragh, the rep from England, is going to call it sublime mysticism. He is going, to say that this is a guise of Christianity to, just squash liberalism. And so, this is a really weird thing. Liberals are going to see it that way too. It's a sort of unholy alliance of monarchies against liberty and progress under this guise of Christianity. And it will really only be taken seriously by the monarchs in Eastern Europe as they are attempting to squash nationalism in that region. Remember, they've taken on territories that are very identified by their ethnicity, and this is their role, trying to make this guise of uniting people under Christianity to keep people under control. And so this is going to be, some of our problems. It's kind of a weird part of this, result of the Quadruple Alliance, but it will really just be Russia, Austria, and Prussia that kind of subscribe to this as a way to hold down the people in their areas. Okay, so some more review questions. The Concert of Europe tried to revolutionize Europe. True or false? This would be false. They tried to keep it the same, the status quo. Russia was in the Quadruple Alliance. This is true. They were part of our big four. Making sure you remember those. England was in the Quadruple Alliance. This is true. France was in the Quadruple Alliance. False. Oh, my slides are going really fast. Just one second. Okay, so we had false, true, true. False. France was not part of the Quadruple Alliance. Remember, it was the big four. France had been in the Congress of Vienna as, +1, but not in this. So then back to Belgium being part of the Quadruple Alliance, and this is going to be false. Okay, just remember, it's our big four: Russia, Prussia, Austria, and England. Austria was in the Quadruple Alliance. This is true. And so what may one of your test questions be? All of the following were in the Quadruple Alliance except, so be prepared. Remember, you need to remember what the big four were. My slides are messed up today, guys. Sorry, I think it's the internet. So the Quadruple Alliance was part of the Concert of Europe. That would be true. Yes, they are part of this meeting. They are our big four. knowing what the big four are. Quadruple Alliance, part of the Concert of Europe. And so which country withdrew from the Congress system in 1822, effectively killing the Congress system? That would be A, England. Remember, they had not agreed with the quadruple, and it had to be unanimous with the putting the squishing of the revolt in Spain. So true or false, the Holy Alliance included the same members as the Quadruple Alliance, except for Russia. That is false. It included all the same members as the Quadruple Alliance except for, and we're going to get to it. So that is false. That weird Holy Alliance, who was in it? The Holy Alliance included the same members as the Quadruple Alliance except for England. That was true. Okay, sorry about that. My slides are going quick and then slow. The internet is being really weird here, but I tried to piece that together as best as possible. That was Unit 7.1, Part 1, and we're going to pick back up with 7.1, Part 2 with an ism, the age of isms, and that's going to be with conservatism. So the first part, a lot of review, but putting it, I needed to give you that global perspective, where we are, where we're going, what the next 100 years are going to bring us, and so we're going to go more in depth and with some new information, but still a little bit of review. What's great about our last unit, this unit is one of those squishy units where you put everything together. So a lot of it will feel like review and just adding some extra layers or some extra depth to it. So we'll pick up with Unit 7.1, Part 2, in our next lecture, picking up again with Metternich and conservatism and what this conservatism is going to be leading us towards.